You can see further on the shoulders of giants. I actually got that from, it was quoted in a book of mine too.
We read it at school about the kid that has this Freak the Mighty. That's where
it's in there too.
I knew I got this from somewhere, and that kept on rolling with me.
It's in that cartoon too about the giant robot with the kid. But this was actually a quote that's been around for a long time. But the book I'm talking about is by one of my favorite writers, John Eldredge. Are you familiar with him? Wild at Heart. I don't know, a lot of churches do the Wild at Heart series, and I do it with some of my men's groups. But he had a little book that he wrote about it. The whole story was like a story built around seeing the shoulders of giants and fear of giants and all that kind of stuff, and facing the giants. There you go, if you want to throw that in there. But what does it mean? What do you think it means?
I think it means that, like, if you use what other people have already learned, you'll get that much farther.
And you sure I ain't talked about this already?
I don't know if it's the same story, but it sounds familiar. I think you talked about it
A long time ago with my sons?
a few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago. Okay. But it relates to this right over here. You know, I gave you that line where I told you about that I used when I was a kid too, and I go, oh, Mom and Dad, I need to experience it for myself, you know, and how much of a bunch of junk that was, you know. And what did I say that you need to do? If you believe that, if you honestly believe that, my boys try to do that too. You know, I need to experience it for myself, Dad. I said, okay, give me your car keys. What? Give me your cell phone. What? And that was even worse than the car keys, you know. And I said, you need to experience building one yourself. From the ground up, build you a car. You need to experience that. You need to experience building your own cell phone. But that's the old Latin reductio ad absurdum, you know, taking it to the absurd stage of, yeah, you need to start from scratch. But it sort of explains what you've got to enjoy is stuff from people who've gone before you, successes, right? You get to enjoy all this technology because of people before you that have created all this stuff. And if my boys had to make all the exact same mistakes that I had to make, they might be dead. Thank goodness I had my grandmother and my mom praying for me so much, because else I'd be dead. They'd only go as far as I went. But if they could learn from the mistakes that I've already made, they could go so much further. So you can see further on the shoulders of giants, of the ones that have gone before you, and their successes and their failures. Now, I'm not saying that I don't let them make a few mistakes, but it's in a controlled environment. I tell you about my buddy Ed, you know, had all this money in college. He's my roommate. Tell you about that. He noticed that us guys that had motorcycles when we went to college, we'd drive right up to the front door of the buildings on campus and park our bikes in the bike section. All we had to pay for was a little $3 permit to put on our motorcycle. We didn't have to have special parking or have to wait to be a senior so we could park closer to the buildings and all that kind of stuff. So he said, I'm going to take my money, I'm going to go buy a motorcycle. We'd never ridden before. And he said, or he asked, Keith, could you teach me how to ride? And I said, sure. And I drug out I used to have all this motocross boot stuff and chest guards and arm guards and gloves and fancy helmet. I took him out to a place that used to be, you know where the airport is? When you know the big loop if you're coming by Sam's in Opelika and you have to go all the way back around? It's a new section of the airport they've added on. That used to be a giant mud motocross pit. It was great. I mean, we used to take our Jeeps and our motorcycles over there and we would ride all day. It had ramps, it had banks, it had mud holes. I took my Bronco through one hole, and I had water standing inside the Bronco, so it went dead, and I had to get somebody to pull me out. But you looked at the hole, and it didn't look like it was that deep. But when I hit it, whole front end went underwater. But I took him out there, and I said, "Okay, I want you to wreck." He goes, "What?" He goes, yeah, I want you to wreck. Okay, if you do something when you're cutting these banks and everything, and it causes you to wreck, you won't do that again. you know? And right now you're doing it with all my gear on, in soft, turned up dirt, going real slow, and learning your lesson instead of out there on 280 or on 85 with a semi coming down on you. That you don't want it to happen out there, because then you're dead. And if you learn that you cut your wheels the wrong way, or you lean too far or lean the wrong way and you hit the ground, you'll learn not to make that mistake anymore. And he learned pretty good. And you know, I told him in the other class, I don't know about y'all, but us guys, we're kind of stupid. If something doesn't work well, did I tell you this? We think we just did it wrong, so we got to do it again. You know, and we'll drag ourselves up there with a broken leg and say, oh, I just hit the ramp wrong. I got to try it again. Girls, you know, they'll get hurt and they'll go, I ain't doing that no more. But us guys, we're a little dumb. And we'll keep trying it. But the same thing with my own sons. I still want them to experience some things, but it's in that controlled environment, you know, where I can kind of control the parameters and keep them from getting hurt too badly, but they can still learn. Okay? Why do I tell you all this? Because it's exactly what we're talking about right here. This is the overall objective of the lesson. You're going to learn from the history of medicine and healthcare. You're going to learn about it. And I told you, I'm not real big on dates. Dates are not important to me. Maybe the century, okay, or the millennia or whatever is important, but not the actual date. What's more important to me is who and what. Why the who? Because I want to give them credit for what they did. The what is the really important part, because that's what they did. That's what they did for us to learn from. And we are going to build on successes and also learn from failures. What's the old saying about Thomas Edison? You know, he got sued when he was making a light bulb. He was getting grant money from all these companies to build this light bulb, and he kept having all these failures. And they took him to court, and he sat there, and they said, "Sir, you have failed 180 times to make a light bulb." And he said, "No, I've just learned 180 ways not to make a light bulb. All I got to do is find one." Okay? That does work, and later he did. So he was learning from his failures. And I'm an old coot now, you know, I'm getting older. And it's funny because I think a lot of times I make younger teachers and everybody sort of mad. Because they'll come up with this program and it's all new to them, and they'll say, we need to do this for the school. And I go, yeah, we've done that 3 times before. You just put a new name on it. It's a great idea. We need to do it. You know, I don't mean to offend them. I don't say it like that. I just say, yes, we have had success with this in the past. Let's see some of the things and maybe we can build on it. But what I've noticed as I've gotten older is we as humans, we tend to just repeat stuff over and over and over again. And don't go anywhere. But if we learn from our failures and learn from our past successes, that's the importance of history and why we should continue to learn from it and to learn history. All right. First guy I point out here, y'all are making comments about the other day, was Moses. You saw it up on the thing. So this was the first time that they had kind of grown people into a big tribal nomadic society. It used to be smaller groups. And God had given him rules that they should use to stay healthy. You know, we focus on the manna from heaven and all that, and the water from the rock in church and where he provided food for them, but he also provided them with rules and regulations on keeping themselves clean and not allowing illness to run rampant through this group that's running through the desert for so long. Okay? And that's why we give a little bit of credit to Moses here and in some of our books in the earliest sanitation. Now, what other heavy influence did Moses have on him? You know? You know what Moses was early on? He was an Egyptian. He was taken in by Pharaoh's home. And he actually was considered a brother to who would later become the Pharaoh. And if you go watch the movie with Christian Bale in Exodus and Gods and Kings, or if you watch old Cecil B. DeMille's as Moses, you'll see what I'm talking about. Or read your Bible, that's another thing you can do. But they had rules for if someone passed away, how to manage and handle the body. And the Egyptians were like unreal good at that. Most of what we do now is not Christian based, it's Egyptian based. And the cornucopic jars and the removal of the brain matter and the internal organs and the prepping of the body actually is something that's been handed down by the Egyptians. But they carried the body to a place that was away from the living quarters. Even the English didn't know that. They would bury people in the middle of town. And sooner or later, big cities like Venice and London and all that were built on top of the graves of people. And what does that cause? Rats, plague, body,
if you build a house on top of
body scum oozing down into their water supply, And Moses was trying to avoid this, and he took some of the stuff that he learned from the Egyptians, and of course was given to him from God to keep everybody safer and cleaner. And there were, even instructions for uncleanliness in men and women on how to do it. And if you research that, there was a lot of it. What's a shaman? Medicine man, witch doctor. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, oh, ah, walla, walla, bing, bang. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah. Okay. I asked the witch doctor, and what did he say? Okay.
Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz. Well, that's actually a song, and then it's really good on the Disney Channel. Does a great job of it. I had to bring that one up.
Rugrats does a good job of it.
Nah.
You want names?
But they are the witch doctor and the shaman, and what's so important about them? Well, a lot of our medicines and a lot of our history and the way we take care of people has been passed down from these witch doctors and shamans. Some of it's bunk. Some of it's good. Some of it's bad. With our newfound intelligence and other stuff, we need to learn from it. The old, I don't want to say too many of them, but the old bathing in onions thing for helping out with fever actually wound up being pretty good and astringent. And this movie is based on a true story. Again, I can't show it to you because it's way too vivid and it's way too, messed up. Because it's one giant drug trip is what it is. It's kind of like Alice in Wonderland, one giant drug trip.
This is a zombie.
Yeah, okay.
Seems like half of it.
The realistic story, of course, Hollywood took it and made it a love story with all this other stuff in it and added things to it. But the real story is a situation where this guy is a scientist. And he has been sent by a pharmaceutical company. A lot like the movie you're going to watch, The Medicine Man, which is a little bit cleaner that I can show. It has the same kind of aspects to it. A pharmaceutical company has hired him and says, supposedly this witch doctor has brought people back from the dead. And we want to know how he did it. Because if it is a medicine that we can use when people are close to death, that we can bring them back, we want the market on it. So they pay him money to go down there and research this. But at the same time, the voodoo people don't want him to learn it. Okay? So the real guy had a plan. His plan was he had to report back to his officials on a regular basis, satellite phone, all this kind of stuff. At this time, if you don't hear from me, send a team down here to find me and give me these medications, da-da-da-da-da, because he had done a lot of research in it anyways. And of course, Hollywood took it and made a scary movie out of it called The Serpent and the Rainbow.
From Wes Craven, director of A Nightmare on Elm Street, comes a story of the forbidden world between life and death. There's a door to the mystical, and you just walk through it. Somebody brought him back from the grave, and I want to know.
That's the drug officials.
Yes. soul.
You think you can take these people's secrets and just walk away?
In the shadow
See that?
of the imagination
Where she blew something in his face?
lies the ultimate nightmare. Don't let them bury me. I'm not dead. The serpent and the rainbow.
So
All right.
did he live?
Yeah. And matter of fact, I can tell you how all this is done. It sounds funny, but then when you really take it and break it down, you find a lot of truth in it. So, let's watch this, which is from Cherokee folklore. You can go into Cherokee Museum in Cherokee, North Carolina, and they got this little holographic thing that will come out and talk to you, and it's telling you folklore, the same stuff that I was told, basically, from my grandmother when I was growing up.
The healing will begin soon. It's unfortunately humans need medicine at all. You know, there was a time when we didn't need medicine because there was no diseases. Back when all the creatures of the earth could talk and live together in a great peace. But then the humans multiplied.
See, watch the smoke too. It's got stuff in it.
The animals. And the animals called a council. They decided that for every animal who was killed, a disease would be released to plague the humans. But the plants were friendly to humankind. And when they heard what the animals had done, they called a council and decided to help the humans. They agreed that for every disease the animals released, a plant would offer a cure. The plants taught me how to use the medicine. That's why every plant has a use. If only we could learn it.
I don't know how they got a video of that, because if you take any picture in that museum, the little guy comes running out yelling at you. And they took a whole video of it. But it's pretty cool. It's a round table, and you hit the button, and he'll tell you different stories of folklore. And the guy's a little hologram that comes out of the hut. You can actually see him from several different angles. You can't see him from the back.
That wasn't a real man?
Well, it was a real guy doing a video, but they tried to make it look like he was a spirit coming back from the past. And then using the smoke, you saw the skull and the tree and the animals and stuff as he told the story. Because they said that, you know, back then, if you pay attention to Paint with All the Colors of the Wind with Pocahontas and Disney, they talk about the same thing. And in pharmacology class, they're learning about how you can use willow bark to get rid of pain. But it said that they could all talk to one another. But when man killed the deer, the story I got, that it was a bad winter, and man harvested a deer to feed his family, and it made the animal kingdom mad and all this kind of stuff. And so they started creating diseases. Well, what are most of our diseases? Little animals, bacteria, little bugs, right? All right. Where do most of our cures come from? Plants, you know. So even though there's a lot of hoax behind it, there may also be a lot of truth behind it. In that over 85% of our cures right now and our medications come from plants. You know. It was also at that time that my grandmother told me that the animals stopped talking to us. And because the plants wanted to be friendly with the animals still, they agreed not to talk to us anymore. And they acted like they were going to be in the plot with the animals. But in truth, behind the scenes, they were providing us with the cures. Y'all have a good day.